Don't buy this jacket. Their words, not mine. In 2011, Patagonia ran an ad in the New York Times stating to not buy their jacket. But why would they do this? To understand this, you have to go way back. It all starts with Yvon and Doug. In 1947, a young boy named Yvon Chouinard recently moved with his family from Maine to California, pretty close to a park named Griffith Park, where he would spend every waking minute pretty engrossed in the outdoors, including the birds. To see the enchanted nests of the birds he was training. Strangely enough, though, he enjoyed the journey of climbing up and rappelling down most of all, which led to his love of rock climbing. Throughout the first years of his climbing career, he became more and more frustrated with the lack of good climbing gear, and became a blacksmith to make his own superior equipment. During this time, a man by the name of Doug Thompkins was also growing up with a love of the outdoors, becoming a highly skilled skier, kayaker, and rock climber. So much so that he decided to drop out of high school to pursue these dreams. At 21 years old, he became increasingly irritated with the poorly made outdoor gear that was available, so he decided to make his own, which eventually led to him creating his own business called the North Face. Through a North Face business meeting, he met one of his longest-lasting friends, the aforementioned Yvon. Even with North Face becoming a huge success, Doug became sick of the increasing pressure on what to wear and how to run the business. He eventually had enough and sold his shares at North Face for $50,000. With just a van, outdoor equipment, and a camera eagerly waiting to film a journey, Doug, Yvon, and their 3 friends hit the road. They traveled all the way from California to Patagonia, where they surfed, kayaked, and most famous of all, climbed the unclimbable Cerro Fitzroy, making one of the most fun and beloved outdoor documentaries ever made, Mountains of Storm. This movie helped to inspire hundreds of future climbers, such as Jeff Johnson and his journey in the film 180 Degrees South, where I first learned about Yvon and Doug. The trip also helped to reinforce Doug and Yvon's love for the Patagonia area. After this trip, Doug decided he wanted to get back into the business landscape, so he and his wife at the time, Susie, created a clothing brand, Esprit. Esprit also turned out to be a huge success and helped Doug become a business powerhouse. Although Esprit became a massive achievement, Doug started to lose interest in the fashion and corporate world, with him over time becoming more engrossed in protecting our planet. Soon thereafter, he left Esprit along with him and Susie splitting up. Not too long after, Doug ditched everything and moved to Chile to start his own conservation work, Thompkins Conservation. When Doug moved to Chile, he started to buy up land in hopes to keep the land away from construction and other environmental concerns. Yet at the time, most Chileans did not see this as an act of kindness and did not believe he was going to do what he promised, with absurd theories
Look at some of the reasons that have been given. You are building a Jewish homeland, you are setting up a gold mine, you are a spy for Argentina. What's the craziest one you've heard?
The craziest one was that we were going to take the local cows out and replace them with North American bison. That was about as good as it got.
Not too long after this, the Patagonia CEO at the time, Chris McDivitt Ware, came to visit and fell in love with the Patagonia area and Doug himself, with her deciding to retire and move to Patagonia alongside Doug. They began to buy even more parks, including Corcovado Park, which holds the Corcovado Mountain, with Doug being the only person to climb up to the top of this. Once they felt like they had done enough restoration work on these parks, they would give them back to the Chilean and Argentinian people, and slowly gained a newfound respect from the locals and the governments. This did not just help the locals, but also the tourism market, because of the many new trails that have been built through these projects. Sadly, in 2015, as everything started to come into place, the unexpected happened on a small kayaking trip. There was a sudden huge storm and Doug Thompkins flipped over in the freezing cold and later died to hypothermia at the age of 72. In the end, with combined efforts of Chris and Doug Thompkins, they built over a staggering 2 million acres of land created over 5 new parks, and Chris is still working to create more to this day. These sustainable practices from Thompkins Conservation also helped to inspire the Patagonia area to become a leading region of sustainability. Patagonia is known by many for having some of the most diverse and beautiful landscapes in the world. It covers an astonishing 1 million square kilometers, with it being located at the bottom of both Chile and Argentina, and is separated by a natural border of the Andes Mountains. The area consists of deserts, beautiful beaches, and nearly every other ecosystem you can think of, including, of course, the snow-covered mountains climbers can't get enough of. Patagonia was land to many First Nations, including the Selk'nam and Telchili people. The Telchili people were also known as the rumored Patagonian giants that were said to have been double the size of European settlers at the time. It is believed they were named Patagonians after one of the sailors read the book Magellan, which had a race of wild giants, amongst other theories. Other than Doug Thompkins, there are many other sustainable companies and initiatives in Patagonia, including one of the most highly respected hotels in the world, Camp. Camp follows a 4C structure with environmental conservation, embracing the local culture, supporting the local community, and being a viable business to also care for the planet through commerce. With doing many interesting initiatives such as, although Chile and Argentina are known as fairly sustainable countries in the grand scheme of things, there are still many issues facing the people and the nature in these countries, including the increase in farm fishing and pulp mills. With a huge number of Chilean gauchos and residents fighting to protect the Patagonia landscapes from several new dams being built along the rivers, starting with one gaucho that spread the word. With Yvon being inspired by these actions and wanting to make Patagonia Inc. even more sustainable. The history of Patagonia Inc. During the time Doug started to create a spree, Yvon was still hyped up from the life-changing trip to Patagonia. So he started to travel all over the world, including Scotland, where he came across a rugby shirt that looked rugged and comfy enough for climbing, so he bought it and did just that. He began to climb in it. He got lots of interest and compliments on it by fellow climbers. This helped him to realize that there might be opportunity here. So he imported some more and sold them to fellow climbers who bought them incredibly quickly. Then, like any sane person would do, he bought some more and started his own little business. This business was called Patagonia. Yvon's other company, Chouinard Equipment, was doing phenomenally well, with it becoming the biggest supplier of climbing equipment in the United States and the leader of innovation throughout the climbing industry. One of these innovations was his clean climbing proposal because he was worried about damaging the rocks.
That when you hammer those into the rock, then you take them out, it harms the rock. If a climb on a mountain is very popular with many people, then those pitons going in and out hundreds, even thousands of times make increasingly big holes in the crack.
During this time, Patagonia was also booming, with new shops opening up everywhere. Until one day, Yvon got a call that he was poisoning his employees. Once Yvon was informed that it was a poison called formaldehyde that was used for cotton clothes to help minimize wrinkling and shrinkage. After this realization, Yvon and his team started to question the whole clothing and business landscape, with this becoming the start of Patagonia's push towards sustainable clothing. After this scary encounter, Patagonia started to go against every business instinct, on one singular focus of saving the planet rather than the normal corporate focus of growth of income. Patagonia over time has introduced many initiatives. These include their strong push into recyclable material, fair trade, economic growth, and a different way of marketing. Patagonia has always been a strong proponent for the use of recyclable materials, with them being known as one of the first companies to ever recycle their material. They often reuse corn scraps that normally go in the garbage, and recycled material of wool, nylon, cashmere, and even plastic. They also have an initiative called Wornwear, where you can send back your old sweater for money to be resold, and if needed repaired, or even made into new clothing to keep the cycle going. Along with making a Wornwear series about professional athletes that get attached to their gear that they've used many times over. Patagonia is also heavily pushed to treat their employees with respect. For example, Yvon has a strange policy of when there is a good swell, his employees can go surfing as long as they finish their work, as explained in his book, Let My People Go Surfing. Rather than having child or slave labor like some other big brands use, they have worked hard to have reasonably paid fair trade workers. Patagonia also follows a slogan of 1% for the planet. This requires them to give 1% of their earnings back to the environmental charities, along with them pushing other people or businesses to do the same. With Yvon repeatedly stating that it's everyone's responsibility to protect our planet. The main reason Patagonia has been able to stay so sustainable even through its rising popularity is because Yvon still owns 100% of the company, so he does not get pushed around by shareholders. Although all this sounds great, Patagonia hasn't gone without its own controversies and skeptics. And stopping partnerships with big brands after their vests have become a staple of many corporate businessmen, with them recently not shying away from sharing their political beliefs, including putting "Vote these assholes out" on some of their shorts tags. Along with politics, an increasing number of Patagonia skeptics have been stating the only reason that Patagonia is around is to grow and make money, which will in turn create an increase in waste emissions, creating a paradox explained more in depth in Patagonia, the Paradox of an Eco-Conscious Company video by our Changing Climate YouTube channel. To combat this criticism, they have started to really push a buy what you need, not what you want mentality, which leads us to the question of why Patagonia placed an ad saying, "Don't buy this jacket." Many pessimists have said it's just a greenwashing scheme, but after learning the love that Yvon has for the outdoors, him being inspired by his late friend Doug's conservation efforts, the great effects of being sustainable can have on a place like Patagonia or even the world. I truly believe it is because Yvon and Patagonia sincerely don't want you to buy their jacket.